Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. Today's episode, we are talking about the Tempest Domain Cleric. If you like what we do here, please like, share, and subscribe. Please comment. We love to hear what's going on in your games, the things you're doing, the characters you come up with. It is awe-inspiring to some of the things you guys get up to, and we really love to hear from you. So please keep commenting, and without further ado, let's jump right into the video. The Tempest Domain Cleric. This comes to us from the player's handbook. The themology behind it is very, very cool. A lot of the times you'll see people play this character subclass as a disciple of Thor or as Thor themselves. And that's great. There's a lot of inspirations you can get there. It's really, really very apparent because you get a lot of lightning spells with this subclass. And the idea of a cleric really holds on to this idea of a character carrying a warhammer or a maul, and Thor really is like that, and it works. A lot of things are great, but I think you miss out on a little bit of what the Tempest is as a domain, and I really encourage people to really look at it like that. If you think of a ship crossing the ocean in the middle of a storm, and that real dangerous scenario, that is a Tempest. Plagues, like insect plague, is a spell that you get in the domain spell list. And that's really that's an apocalyptic event, insect plague. And you really see that as a storm, as people go in berserk, freaking out because of the dangers of the world around them and things uncontrollable happening. And that's really where the Tempest really takes off, because if you lean into this idea of this uncontrollable chaos that you're wielding for an event, for something, for the greater cause of your deity, that is a wonderful idea that I think really gets overshadowed by the awesomeness of Thor. And don't get me wrong, I love the Norse gods, I love their mythology, I love the Marvel movies, it's great. Thor is awesome. I encourage people to love the things that they love and to really go out and try and make that reflective in your game. And this subclass really gives you the availability to do that. I really encourage people to look at some of the other gods that are involved here, some of them that they imply, including Talos. I believe one of the lizard folk gods are actually a god of the Tempest. And there's a lot of cool things in the other pantheons. They all have someone there. And if you want to play a sailor character or someone in a seafaring adventure, and someone who encourages the storm and is just screaming in excitement when the storm hits, that is who this Tempest Cleric can be. And you get this wonderful availability to not just be this lawful cleric and be typecasted to following your deity's words and laws and everything to the T, where you can be a little chaotic and you can be a little offbeat and encourage this chaos to occur because of the beauty that it is and what it can create in the aftermath, and what this chaos means for the growth of the people that are involved. And you lead into that, and that has a really, really good groundbreaking setup for who your character can be. So again, please, I encourage you to take some real looks at some of the things you can do with some of the backgrounds in being a cleric, and really connect them to some of the deities here in the Tempest domain, and focus more on the whole aspect of the Tempest as opposed to just one or two things. And you really have a great foundation to add multiple levels to your character and add different things, and then encourage these different variables of Tempest into reflections of your character, and you have an incredible ground floor for a really great character to roleplay as. At level 1, you gain access to the Tempest Domain spell list as well as bonus proficiencies. The proficiencies you get are heavy armor and martial weapons, so you can use the weapons with the biggest damage die, and you get heavy armor, so you are not afraid to go into melee combat. It is a great thing to have, especially as a caster, because now you can be both back and front and do a lot of great things, hanging out in the middle and being very, very versatile in that aspect. The domain spell list for the Tempest Cleric has some great things, and I think a lot of them really don't get used as often as they should. Thunder Wave is a great spell. You get that at level 1. That's going to be really important early on, and I'll get into that when I get into some of your other abilities. Shatter is also great at 3rd level because you don't get a lot of AoE spells, and as a cleric, you don't really get a lot of AoE spells like Shatter, so it's very useful, especially right when you get it. 5th level is very cool. You get Call Lightning, which is a great spell, but it is a concentration, and it will require you to endure it as long as humanly possible. You don't get Lightning Bolt, and I would really talk to your DM about incorporating that into your class. I understand why they won't really want you to get that, and it's reflective on one of your other skills you'll get later, and I'll discuss that at that point. A spell that I think never gets the time of day is Destructive Wave. You get that at 9th level as a cleric. It comes from the Paladin spell list. One of the major reasons why you never see that spell really cast is because Paladins are really using that spell slot level for smites. If they ever get up that high. You know, you have to be pretty high level to cast 5th level spells as a Paladin. It does thunder damage. I believe it's 5d6. And then on top of that, it does an additional 5d6, either radiant or necrotic of your choice. And it's a wave that comes out from your point to 30 feet. And whoever fails to save gets knocked prone on top of it. It's awesome. If you get the opportunity to use it, I really suggest you do. It does a lot. It's a big amount of damage, and people really don't tend to see it because it always gets overshadowed because it belongs on the Paladin spell list. And you get Insect Plague, where if you wanted to make the world feel like Armageddon is really happening, and you wanted to be one of the horsemen of the apocalypse, Insect Plague is definitely one of those spells you want going. It is a great spell. It's a huge AoE. It does magical piercing damage. It makes it hard. I believe it heavily obscures the area, so it's hard for anyone to see anything in it. Awesome. Great. Very useful for you and your party, especially if you get to jump on someone and they don't get to see where you cast the spell from, and they're just suffering inside the plague. That feels good. Because you literally drop the plague on them. They have nowhere to run. They can't see anything because it's heavily obscured. And they're taking damage per round. Awesome. Again, a lot of these things get overshadowed by other spells. By other flashier spells. But there's a lot of longevity here. And you have the cleric's spell list. So you have access to great spells. Anyway, read through your spells. Look at these spells. And try and see how they reflect your Tempest. Who your character is. And really try and use these spells and make your cleric feel more like a Tempest cleric, as opposed to just grabbing the normal great spells that all clerics grab, because you don't want to feel ununique. You want to feel like being a Tempest cleric is different from being a war cleric. You want to feel that importance of just like, I have heavy armor and I can go up front, but what am I going to do when I'm not up front? Incorporate these spells, really try and figure yourself out, and give yourself a chance to evolve how you play as a cleric, and really personalize these spells. Find out where your connection to the Tempest is, and have that be your starting point when you start describing how you cast your spells. It'll be a great way to stay very, very in tune with your character, and really feel like this great gel between you and your character. Also, at first level, your real first Tempest domain ability is Wrath of the Storm. It reads as follows. You can thunderously rebuke attackers. When a creature within 5 feet of you that you can see hits you with an attack, you can use your reaction to cause the creature to make a dexterity saving throw. The creature takes 2d8 lightning damage or thunder damage, your choice, on a failed saving throw. Half as much on a successful one. And you can do this a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain all uses when you finish a long rest. Here's what's really important to understand. It is very limited, because at level 1, maybe you're doing it 3 times a day. But 2d8 lightning or thunder damage is a very big deal right at level 1. Later on, there's other things that you can do with thunder and lightning damage, and I'll get into that. But understand that being in melee, you are going to get hit. This doesn't cost a spell slot. You can use it whenever you want. Use it. When you get to higher levels, 2d8 isn't much. You know, it's just not that great when you hit like 15th level or anything higher than that. But it is additional damage. You're doing it basically for free. And the only thing you have to do is just remember to use your reaction. There's not a lot of spells you're going to have that use your reaction as a cleric, and there's not a lot of reactions you're going to be taking normally as a cleric, because generally if something's going to try and hit you, running away really isn't in its wheelhouse if it gets close to you. But this gives you that great availability to do so, and it's a reaction. So use it to chip away. Don't get caught up in the mindset of I'm going to save this for when I really need it and then never use it. It's important to get as much use of this as possible, and you want to make sure you do so. So feel free to use it pretty willingly. There's no reason not to. If something comes up to you within 5 feet and hits you, it should be your instinct to use Wrath of Storm. You should use it as something having the audacity to touch a cleric of the Tempest, to touch a cleric of Thor or Zeus or any of the other gods out there, to really have the audacity to stand in their way and feel that wrath. That should be feeling awesome when you get to knock that out. Very cool. Use it as often as you can. You want to be able to say, I used all of those before a long rest. It's a great way to use your reaction that you don't often get to use, and make sure that you're maintaining the highest possible action economy, because that'll up your damage across the board. It'll help your whole party take more actions than the enemy does, and thus win more fights. At second level, you gain access to your Channel Divinity option for the Tempest Domain Cleric. All clerics gain Channel Divinity to turn undead. Each domain has their own specific Channel Divinity that you get as well. You can choose either one when you decide to cast your Channel Divinity. Destructive Wrath is incredible. The text reads as follows. You can use your Channel Divinity to wield the power of the storm with unchecked ferocity. When you roll lightning or thunder damage, you can use your Channel Divinity to deal maximum damage instead of rolling. This is why you don't get Lightning Bolt, because you could always upcast these spells and they will always deal maximum damage to you. Shatter will always have a special place in your heart because of this ability. When you gain access to that, that's basically where you're going to pump a lot of these into. It works. Thunder is one of the least resisted, and if you're fighting any kind of golems or anything like that, that is going to take a lot of damage from that. Understand using this on your Wrath of the Storm ability is not really optimal. When you first get it, yeah, it's great to drop 16 when you get the opportunity to do so. Or maybe you're out of spell slots and you have nothing else to do, but you still have your Channel Divinity. Use it. Understand that it only works when you use it once. So things like Call Lightning, if you use it the first time you cast it, it does not stay the entire time you cast the spell. Otherwise, your DM is crazy for letting you do that. Spell selection is important. Thunder Wave at a high level, maximum damage, is a great way to clear an area. These things are awesome. It's important to look at your Tempest Domain spells, because that's where you're going to get your lightning and thunder damage from. And it's important to understand how best to incorporate that in your combats. Using this smart is really easy. You just have to decide to use it. Your spells will always do more damage against characters that are at full HP than when they're almost down. It's just simple math. So if you're going to use it, try and use it early in a fight so it can do the most damage possible, and that's really what it's here for. It just ups your damage. You do a crazy amount of damage. You have spells that can do great things, especially if you continue to upcast them. If you wanted to work with your DM and gain certain access to certain other spells, think carefully. This is something that can very easily make your character very overpowered. Clerics are deceptively powerful, and they are always overlooked because of healing, because nobody ever considers them that much of an influence, because mainly they do support like things. This is not a cleric that does that. Sorry, yeah, you have access to healing spells. Yeah, you're a cleric, and I hear it all the time, but you should get healing spells. You should, you shouldn't. It's up to how you want to play. Grab one if you want to be generous. Again, I hate healing, but when you have Channel Divinity that you can just drop maximum damage, are you really going to sit there and not cast a spell that can do that? and save your channel divinity for something else, or save all your spell slots for healing, it's not the right move. It's not optimal. You're never going to do the gods and the goddesses of the Tempest justice if you fear using the full capacity of the strength that they've given you, especially at 2nd level. You have this throughout the game, and if you play long enough, you get access to 9th level spells, upcast something. It still works on those. At 6th level, you gain access to Thunderstruck Strike. When you deal lightning damage to a large or smaller creature, you can also push it up to 10 feet away from you. This is a great thing, especially when you get a few other levels ahead of you. As long as you deal this damage, you can push a large or smaller creature away from you. Gain something that does lightning. Anything, even half damage. Any spells or any saves that do that, and it will still push them 10 feet away. This kind of gives you almost the mobile feat later on, and I'll explain why. It's a great defensive maneuver. It's a great tactical positioning ability, and really something you kind of gotta work with to figure out. If you gain access to anything that does lightning damage, you can use lightning lure and whip them close to you and then push them right away, right back. It's funny and it's weird, but it's possible. A lot of the things that are going to incorporate what this does and what it can do comes down to your understanding that it's lightning damage and not thunder damage. So if you did have access to Booming Blade, it doesn't help you. And one of the popular misconceptions is that it works with your next ability, and it doesn't, strictly because it is lightning damage. It does work with Wrath of the Storm because they do take lightning damage. So if you do get hit and you need to push someone away, push them away. Especially if you're starting after them. It's a great opportunity to do that and maybe step away and then do something else, ranged, whatever. If you gain access to any kind of weapon that can be enchanted or does lightning damage, this will push them 10 feet away from you. This will give you that mobile feat. There's a couple of ways you can do it. There's a couple of items out there. You can always work with your DM to see if they'll just give you one. Don't fall into the category of not thinking this ability is useful. Pushing people away will save your life. It can also save other people. It can also put them tactfully in a scenario where someone else can do more damage to them. Play smart. You have heavy armor. If you decided to walk away from an enemy without taking the disengage action, do it. If they hit you, pop that Wrathful Smite, and if you position yourself well, you can push them next to that barbarian or into range of someone that has Polar Master or something, and work this great, wonderful, almost like a combo attack or a dual attack with your other party members. And then when you're free from the area, you have heavy armor, and there's a good chance you might just dodge the attack anyway, or if you do it early enough, you're not so wounded it's dangerous to you. Opportunities are there. You have to be willing to look at it and sometimes change your perspective. But things that move other characters on the battlefield are great. If someone put down spike growth and you pushed them 10 feet, that's additional damage that they took right off the bat. Understand how these things work. Really focus on how kind of things you can do. And this is a great reason to use your reaction and to get in and out of combat. Make yourself mobile. Make yourself jump around the battlefield so you can start feeling like that Tempest. At 8th level, you gain access to Divine Strike. You gain the ability to infuse your weapon strikes with divine energy. Once on your turns, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you can cause that attack to deal an extra 1d8 thunder damage to the target. When you reach 14th level, this damage increases to 2d8. Now understand, clearly it does not work with Thunderous Strikes, which has thunder in its name, because this does thunder damage and not lightning damage. This is what's really important when you're understanding what a cleric does when they have the availability to be in melee. When they have the availability to be in melee, they always gain access to some sort of Divine Strike ability. And it encourages you to use that. Here's why it is important to understand how this works. If you just stay in the back and you're wearing heavy armor, yeah, it's great. Your survivability is up there. The chance of you keeping concentration spells up is great. And that's fun and it's exciting and it's great. Being able to go in melee, you really kind of take this mindset of what a rogue does. You run up, you do one hit, and then that's it. Because of magic initiate and feats and ways to get cantrips from other characters' spells lists, you can gain access to Booming Blade. In a scenario like this, you do have the availability to use that and up your damage a significant amount. So say you do hit at 8th level, you're using a rapier. That's 1d8 plus whatever your dex is, plus 1d8 thunder damage, plus an additional 1d8 thunder damage from Divine Strike if you use Booming Blade. That is a lot of d8s. It ends up being 3d8 plus whatever your dex mod would be, or your strength mod, depending on what weapon you're using and what your stats are. And as you level up, that increases to whatever amount you want, whatever amount the dice, as they gradually increase, end up being. That is awesome. That really puts you at a situation where you're really doing like an extra attack. Because of how you're set up, if you wanted to be risky, I would take Booming Blade. I would hit someone, and I would walk away. I would flat out just walk away. No disengage, no nothing. Because I can hit Wrath of the Storm and bang them out for another 2d8 if I wanted to. But then they would have to take the movement and take the additional thunder damage. If they were just clearly just next to my character, not next to anybody else's. How you want to play your cleric is very important. When I think of a Tempest, I think of a swirling mass of just confusion and chaos. Treating combat like that reflects it and makes me feel more in tune to what my character is. Yeah, it's risky. Yeah, there's a lot of hits that you don't have to take that you would be taking. But having a lot of other things out there in the mix is great for you. You could have Spirit Guardians up and do this. You can have Spirit Shroud up and do this. Like, you can do a lot of different things. You can have Spiritual Weapon out in the world, and then you do Booming Blade and Spiritual Weapon, and your damage goes really high really quickly. There's a lot of ways to add up to your damage, and having survivability, you do get the opportunity to do more things in combat that nobody else could. I like the idea of causing chaos on the battlefield. I like the idea of being highly mobile, even though I'm really not supposed to. Because at some point, you have to accept that when playing this game, your character is going to die or not. Some combats are meant to be easy, that'll wipe your entire party. Some combats are meant to be really difficult that you'll breeze through. It's all random. So take your chances. Sometimes it'll work out. You do have the benefit, if you take these chances early on, to change your combat style, sit in the back, recuperate, and still be viable. That's the beauty of the cleric. Having the heavy armor, having the martial weapons, having the availability to carry shields. Like, you can do great things. You can have an AC of 20 or higher and still run around the world and do whatever you want. Imposing that and really incorporating that, putting like rain down on the battlefield, fog cloud, whatever, just get people to have to think and change their mindset. You're going to feel great. You're going to feel like that storm that's just decimating that ship from all angles. It's going to feel great. You're going to feel connected to the character you're playing. And if you're a roleplay character, you are going to love this when you start bringing roleplay out of just roleplay scenarios and into combat, and really personalizing your characters, because then you're really going to get so attached and so excited to play them. Doing things like this are really great. So when you get Divine Strike, don't opt for the Tasha's optional cantrip bonus damage and take the chance, risk it once and get out there. It'll feel good. There's plenty of ways to up your damage as a cleric. Don't worry about that. Worry about being the Tempest. Worrying about fulfilling what your deity suggested you live your life by, or how you fight the enemies of your deity, or how you chase that goodness and neutrality or evil that your deity reflects upon you. Get in there. Get in the mix. Push your character. Do things that are kind of scary. It's fun. It's a game. If you're always going to survive, if you're always going to play it like it's life and death in every single combat, you miss out on some of the fun of everything. So really, don't think of Divine Strike as just, oh, it's just never going to add up. Think of it as an extension of your character. And use it so you can feel it. At 17th level, you gain access to the final Tempest Cleric ability, Stormborn. You have a flying speed equal to your current walking speed, and whenever you are not underground or indoors, this is when it takes place. So if you're underground or indoors, can't fly. This is a cool ability. You need to understand whether or not this incorporates hovering, and it doesn't state it here, so just clarify that with your DM. What having hovering means is if you are knocked prone while you are in the air, you don't plummet to the ground. I believe in this scenario you do. It is flight. A lot of people just are over the moon with this. They really love flight. They think flying is an incredible thing. I get it takes you out of melee combat, but I am never really impressed by this. I do see the benefits of it. I don't ever have characters that fly, but I have seen and I have felt myself playing a Dhampir where you're using spider climb basically, and you can just freely walk on ceilings, and I did that all the time in my combats, and I really incorporated that into what my character was, and it makes a huge difference. It is scary. It is difficult for your DMs to really compute how to build encounters when you can just do that. At 17th level, it's wild where you could be. You could be in different planes of existence. You could be anywhere. Whether or not you're underground or indoors is kind of a thing, but in any scenario that isn't a boss fight, because I envision all boss fights being in like a citadel or something, or in a church, or in like a cavern underground where like the center of the world's about to blow up or something like that. Having free flight without any concentration or limitations to it can be very dangerous for the enemy. But you're a cleric. You're a cleric of the Tempest. You're supposed to get in the mix. I think this really compensates for having no availability to be stealthy, really without the help of anybody else casting spells on you. I think it's a great way to infiltrate things. It's a great way to be outside of the castle and try and get in. I think thematically it's mediocre because I don't like flying. I'm not hip to just superhero my way out of things. It's just one of those things that's never really drawn the kind of characters I make. Understand, it is a 17th level cleric. You have access to a huge amount of spells, and your strength comes from your spell list and your availabilities of your skills and abilities that you have. You are doing maybe 3d8 plus whatever your modifier is on a regular attack. If you add a cantrip to that, I want to say maybe you're doing 5d8, 6d8. That's a lot, you know? Your first and second level spells really aren't going to be used for damage at this point, so maybe you're debilitating things with Bane, maybe you're casting Fog Cloud, maybe you're just using Thunder Wave just to clear things away and just make tactical movements. But your 17th level, your real power is in your spell list at this point. And everything else is kind of something that you use in opposition to that whenever you face a choice. Free flight is free flight. I'm just not impressed by flying. Our final thoughts. The Tempest Domain Cleric is very, very cool. If you ever really wanted to channel lightning into something, or you really wanted to play a character that was so infused with like the nightmare scenario of a hurricane or a tornado touching down in an area, and having that be that character's story, like they were just caught out in a town that they didn't belong in, and a storm came down and destroyed houses and everything around it was decimated, but they survived. And they realized it was a gift from the gods of the Tempest, that they chose them. They sacrificed all these people to let their character know that they were important, that this was them saying, you are the most valuable thing in this area, and I want you to be my disciple, my acolyte. Like, that is a very cool thing, and you can reflect that. I love the idea of seafaring adventures where stuff is just going bad, where you're just like cringing, fearing for your life because you're not going to die because of combat, you're going to die because the ship's going under. And really feeling that, really dropping that plague of insects everywhere just to make people go nuts, that chaos that ensues when the laws don't matter because you can't commit a crime because you're fighting for survival because of that primal elemental danger of the Tempest that's always there. A blizzard, that sleet storm, that ice falling from the sky, hail breaking through roofs, like that is your church. You know what I mean? Like that is your temple. That is your moment. That is your prayer to the world. Just walking through it, commanding the storm to come down and decimate your enemies. Like, I love that idea, and it comes to life so well with this subclass because of the abilities that go with it, because of the spells. Yeah, I do wish there's more lightning spells, and I do wish you gain more abilities that really give you that spell list that caters to pulling the things from the druid spell list or the wizard spell list that give you every lightning spell humanly possible. I don't like multi-classing. I get why people do. When you're multi-classing spellcasters, it really doesn't work out a lot of the way people think it does, and then so you really have a lot of difficulty doing that, and it becomes more difficult to set that up the right way. And I think staying in one particular class all the way through feels more rewarding. So I just really think everything you need to be a Tempest cleric is right here. Everything you need to be is in the spell list. If you need some healing, it's right there. If you need more lightning, you can drop your channel divinity. You can just pray to your god for more spells or whatever, or something, or answers, or just incorporate that with your spells. Cast Insect Plague, drop to your knees in the center of it, and pray to your deity or your god or goddess, and use that as like this wonderful tribute to them. Let the ground and the earth around it be saturated with their rage, and then just like everything's right there to really, really go nuts with like the full scope of the storm and incorporate that. And I think it's beautiful. I think the cleric class as its own is wildly powerful. I hate healing, so it's something I very rarely get to play. But all the things to be great are there. All the things to be evil are there. All the things to be neutral are there and chaotic. And you don't always get that with clerics. And it encourages you to be that just nightmare of a scenario, because you could be unpredictable. And you're not mischievous. You're just primal unpredictable because your whims are just tied to the Tempest. I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I don't know anybody that's played it that had a bad time playing this subclass. So really, I encourage you to look through it, read those spells, really incorporate it, and try and reflect the storm into the character and really build an emotional connection to it, and you'll be very happy playing this class. If you have managed to make it this far, thank you so much for sticking through. Please like, share, subscribe. We are climbing. We are getting to points where it's really empowering to see that people are really watching our stuff and really getting involved with us. And thank you so much for all the people who always comment regularly. You mean so much to this channel. And thank you for giving a Spooky Kid a chance.